Trying to decide between the Canon SL2, T7i, and 80D? Well, in this video, I'm gonna be breaking down the pros and cons and features of all of them coming up. Hey, what's up? Sean here with Think Media, bringing you the best tips and tools for building your influence with online video. And on this channel, we do a lot of strategy videos as well as tech gear reviews just like this one. So if you're new here, consider subscribing. And hey, at any point during the video, check out show notes and links in the YouTube description below. I'll list out all of the specs of these cameras as well as anything else I forget to mention in the video. Let's jump into the comparison. So I wanted to shoot this video because I get the question a lot asking, Sean, which camera should I buy? What's really the difference? And I wanted to dive into it specifically with these three models. Now, one thing to mention is that all three of these are solid cameras and they have different strengths and weaknesses. First and foremost, it's important to note that the Canon SL2 at the time of shooting this video comes in at $599 here in the US, AKA the 200D internationally, and that is with the kit lens. The T7i is the 800D internationally and comes in at $799, so $200 more. And then the 80D comes in at the time of shooting this video at $1,049 with the same kit lens that's on the other cameras. And so of course, check out current prices in the YouTube description below, but there's definitely a price gap here. So now let's break down the similarities and differences. So the first thing to note is that all three of these cameras actually have the same sensor. It's a 24.2 megapixel APS-C sensor, and that pretty much means that depending on a few of the other factors, you can get the same video and photo quality more or less out of each of these. However, there are some differences and we will get into those. You also have a flip screen on all three. So each of these is great for YouTube content, whether you want to be vlogging or whether you want to even just be shooting in a home office or a bedroom or anywhere, be able to see yourself, tap the screen for autofocus, all those types of things. Amazing on all three. Additionally, they each have Wi-Fi, NFC, and Bluetooth. And so if you want to grab photos or images off the camera when you're on the go, post those on social media, you can do that on all three. And they also all have dual pixel autofocus, which is a big deal because in the past, the autofocus is so good for tracking faces, for especially in video mode. One of the most popular features that helps Canon stand out is the fact that that autofocus is so amazing. And one of the impressive things though is that they put dual pixel autofocus in the SL2. So for being a budget camera, it's really kind of paired up with the others in that regard. Now, speaking of video, these cameras actually have a lot of things in common. One of which is they all shoot 60 frames a second in video mode, which means you can do 50% slow motion if you edit your footage in 30 frames a second, and even slower than that if you edit in 24 frames a second. And they also all have time-lapse modes. So this is something that YouTubers and vloggers, of course, love because you can just set the camera up, adjust the settings a little bit, and then create a beautiful time-lapse. All right, so those were some of the similarities that all three cameras have in common, but now let's jump into some of the differences. Now, the Canon SL2 and T7i are actually very similar, and we won't go too deep into that because I shot a whole video just comparing those two. So we'll link that up on the YouTube card as well as in the description below. But one of the big differences that we start to note between these two and the Canon 80D is actually the battery. And so these two actually have the E17 battery, and the 80D introduces the E6 battery, which is what the Canon uses in their more pro line, and you actually get about a 60% longer battery life with the Canon 80D. Now, one of the strengths that the T7i and the 80D have in common is they both have 45 points of autofocus. So they're both great photography cameras as well. Now, the SL2 can shoot great photos. You have the same sensor, but it only has 9 points of autofocus. And so it's not gonna be as good for wildlife, for soccer games, for movement, for if you wanna track your subject and really make sure you dial in that awesome shot, these two are gonna be a lot stronger. And speaking of photography, the T7i and the 80D definitely have some advantages. While they have different and higher performing metering modes, they also have those points of autofocus. And as we go across these cameras, how many frames of photography they can shoot per second goes up. So the SL2 is at 5 frames a second, the T7i is at 6 frames, and the Canon 80D is at 7 frames. So why is the Canon 80D $450 more expensive than the SL2 and $250 more expensive than the T7i? Well, there are a few things, and mainly where it comes in is build quality. One of the things that you get with the Canon 80D is a weather sealed body. You also have a much robust, heavier build quality, which actually might be something that is a downside if you want to use the camera for vlogging and carrying it around a lot. You might not want a little bit of extra weight that comes with the 80D. But the build quality doesn't stop there. The Canon 80D also has this top viewable screen here, something that you could definitely live without if you're just shooting YouTube videos, but it is a nice feature so that you don't have to always get down and look at your screen for your settings, but you can just glance at them when you need to make some adjustments. And if you're using this for pro photography or whatnot, having things like that, an AF on button, a lot more functionality with the dials and the wheels. This is meant to be put to work in a pro video or pro photography situation. And then it definitely also has some standout video features. Now, all three of these cameras have a mic input jack, but the 80D adds a headphone jack as well, which is a great feature. And it also has a higher or less compressed video format when it comes to recording video. So the first two, they all do 60 frames, and they all do what Canon calls IPB footage, but they have a less compressed version in the 80D called All I. So again, the 80D is more of a pro video if you want to use it for some video production and even pro photography type of a camera. But I would say that these two are more targeted at consumers, but also prosumers, right? You maybe want to save some money, but still create great content. Then that's sort of where the T7i and SL2 live, whereas the 80D is definitely targeting future advancement. Maybe even if you started with it, it's something that you could take with you and scale as you learn more advanced skills and techniques with photo and video. Now, one quick note to mention about the 80D is that because it's a little bit of an older camera, it actually has the Digic 6 Plus processor, whereas the T7i and SL2 have the Digic 7 processor. Now, processor can influence things like how fast the camera operates, but most of all, it can influence ISO performance and potentially low light performance. However, I don't even think this is something to consider too much because I don't see much of a difference in the final product of the photo or the videos that come out of either camera, but just something to put on your radar. All right, so now let's jump into some video examples from each of these cameras. Now, here on Think Media, video is definitely our priority. There's lots of great YouTube channels that would focus more on the photo performance. For us, we use photography for social media, but these cameras, we pick them up mainly for YouTube content, for creating video content, and so that is what we're gonna be speaking to the most. All right, so for this first series of examples, we're gonna do the vlog test. So what would it look like if you were vlogging with each of these cameras? Now across the board, we're using the 18-55 kit lens, and the settings are matched up on all of the cameras. So let's check it out. Okay, test number one is with the Canon SL2. Now, all of these tests are gonna be with the same settings. So we are at ISO 100, 125 shutter speed, because this is 60 frames a second video, and then 5.6 on the aperture, just using the kit lens, and testing out this for vlogging. So this is the SL2. What do you think? All right, now you are seeing the Canon T7i. Now, both the SL2 and the T7i have similar weights. They weigh almost the exact same, so they're good for vlogging. We're just holding it out here. And what I like about the kit lens that we're shooting all these videos on is it has built-in image stabilization. So while there is shake because we're walking, it does smooth out the edges. You don't have any jitter. And also, I love these Canon cameras because of the dual pixel autofocus, tracks our faces well for vlogging on the go. And finally, we have the Canon 80D vlog test. Now, again, the video quality between these cameras is pretty similar because it's the same sensor and we're using the same IPB mode that all of the cameras have in common. Now, the 80D does have a higher video quality mode for pro video, but just for vlogging, you'd probably shoot in something like this setting right here. Looks pretty good. All right, so then we just did a standard video test. And so here's the SL2. Again, the kit lens on all of the cameras. And this is my wife, Sonia, just kind of walking towards the camera. And this is where we can see the power of the dual pixel autofocus, tracking her as she's walking. It's very cool. Then we tested out the Canon T7i. And you're probably noticing, but I'd love to hear from you in the comments, do these pictures look pretty similar? Is the video quality look similar to you? I definitely think so. But again, performing great for video quality. And then finally, the Canon 80D is performing great as well, right? And so Sonia just walking, we're doing the dual pixel autofocus. They all have touchscreen. And so all three cameras are definitely video powerhouses. And I would love to hear from you what you think about the comparison of the footage. And then for our final test, we wanted to do a couple shots with that nice blurry background. So right now you're seeing the Canon SL2, and actually we put on the 50mm 1.8 lens. Now, I really recommend this lens because at $125 here in the US, it has incredible image quality for both video and for photos. So then we put it on the T7i, and again, you can see that nice blurry background. And what's also cool about these cameras is they are doing pretty well in this mixed light situation. There's a lot of bright light here as well as shadows, but we can definitely see the detail in each of these scenes. And then finally, we put the 50mm 1.8 on the Canon 80D. And again, really great shot, that nice blurry background, AKA the bokeh of this shot looks great. And so I'd love to hear from you. What do you think about the differences or the similarities in the video quality? So which camera should you choose? Well, let's jump into a few of my final thoughts. First and foremost, the Canon SL2 is the obvious winner when it comes to budget, as it is the most affordable. It's also a great camera because it's nice, small, and portable. So if you want something that's really versatile, that can be as small as possible out of all three. Maybe you use for vlogging and for creating YouTube content. And it shoots great video that's even on par with the other cameras in a lot of ways. However, the weakness of the SL2 is definitely more advanced photography, the autofocus points and things like that. So if you were thinking more like, I want that middle choice, I want to shoot some video content, but I also want photography performance, then the Canon T7i is a great choice. Similar to the SL2, shoots great video, but packs a lot more features in with 45 points of autofocus, an extra frame per second when shooting burst mode in photo, and a few other standout features. I also think that the Canon SL2 and T7i are great options for people just getting into photo or video. Each of them actually has a beginner mode that you can turn on or off. So if you're just getting started, they're great cameras to learn on, but you can also grow into them. These again are targeted more at the consumer market, but also the prosumer market, and each of these is a camera you could grow into. But of course, the final winner when it comes to pro photo and pro video is of course the 80D. You have the weatherproof body, so it's meant to be put to work, taken on the road. You could shoot in the rain a little bit. You've got the headphone jack, and not just the mic jack of the first two, for monitoring your audio when shooting video. And then you also have many more pro features when it comes to photography and that higher compression rate, bit rate for video. And so if you plan on not just creating YouTube content maybe of yourself in simple videos, but you plan on doing video production, you wanted to get into color grading, even making short films and things like that, then the 80D is the obvious choice. The only downside being it's the most expensive, right? And it's a little bit bulkier and a little bit heavier than the others. So each of them though, in summation, is great. It just depends on what you need the most and what your budget is. But that brings us to the question of the day, and that is, what is your opinion when it comes to the Canon SL2, T7i, and 80D? Let me know in the comments section below, and remember that some of the best tips and insights come from you, the Think Media community. So definitely connect with everybody in the comments section. So thanks for checking out this video. Subscribe for more videos just like this. And if you want to check out any of the other videos in our Canon camera review series, just click or tap the screen right there. For another video from Think Media, just click or tap the screen right there. Until next time, Think Media is bringing you the best tips and tools for building your influence with online video. Keep crushing it, and we will talk soon.